Hi everybody, last sort of entry level on Config Manager. We are going to look at two main areas today. We're going to look at how do we monitor and move around the system and check that it's healthy and know that it's, doing the right thing. And then how would we look at things like compliance? So how do we know that Config Manager, that are the machines that are in Config Manager are the way we want them to be, and if there's anything we could do to remediate machines when they go out of compliance. So all of this is looking at the health state, what's going on with your system. So obviously when you're looking at health and what's happening on it, you're starting off in the monitoring section, and by default there are a number of alerts. There's a number of alerts that come in through Config Manager, and you can go to an alert and you can configure what you want it to be. So this is synchronization of the software update point. It goes to critical, and you could say, well, do you know what, if the software update point fails to synchronize, it's not critical, it's just a warning. I don't need to know about it. So when people look at some of the areas of System Center now, you'd kind of go, wow, is that not the job of Operations Manager? And if you go to VMM can now do loads of the things that Config Manager used to do. Like VMM will do software updates, and it's going to have compliance settings and a whole lot of stuff in it. And VMM and Config Manager and Ops Manager almost look like in some ways that they conflict each other. And the reason for this is there was loads of people who were saying, look, we're putting in Config Manager, but we have a different monitoring solution, or we're putting in VMM and SCCM, but we're not using Config Manager. And so there are some overlap between the products. So when I sit down with a system and I want to have a look at it, the very first place that I go is I just go to site status, and in site status I am told,
lost your video,
I'm told what's happening with all the components, and from inside the components, where they are and what their free disk space is. And I could go to something, for example, like SQL, and I can just say show all messages from the last day on the SQL server, and it will just categorize them and say, look, here are some things that have happened with this machine. So I can zone in straight away to the messages that appear on it. Probably a more useful detailed view is a component status. And what the component status is it's a list of all the subsystem features of Config Manager that have to work for Config Manager to be working perfectly. Okay, now here's a top tip in this. The single most important component of Config Manager, obviously besides the database, is the management point. Because without a management point, you can't pull policy. And if you can't pull policy, there's no point in having Config Manager in the first place. And so if I go and I have a look at the management point, and it just says it's responding to HTTP requests. Okay, well, that's awesome. But by default, for some reason, the management point role doesn't log when it has a problem. So if you go to your management point from administration, and this isn't ticked with a default install, generate an alert when the management point is not healthy. It's the very first thing that I do. I go in, I check it, because when I sit down with Config Manager and I go to monitoring and I go to component status, the first thing I do is I just stick in MP, and or I stick in whatever it is that I'm looking for, and I want to see that MP is green. That if I'm looking for MP dispatch or whatever it is, I want to know that it's doing its thing. Now, straight away, you could look at this environment and go, there is a problem with replication. Okay, so what's the story? And I can go to show messages for the last day, and it says here that the link status to the secondary site is degraded at this time. Okay, and then it tells you, so this is what's so awesome about config managers. It says, look, here is the log file to go and check to be told what the problem is. Go here and see what the story is. Now, the SCC, secondary site server, is hosted on a server called SCCM, that yoke there, and to the best of my knowledge, it was okay and it was up and going before I did stuff with it to make it appear to have a problem. So I can go first of all to my database replication, and so that's interesting. It says here that the link is active, and I can go in and I can say, well, okay, will you run some checks on the link and see, do you spot anything? So it will go run through all of the stuff on the links, go to the SQL broker services, okay, and it says computer time is offset by greater than 5 minutes. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? So it's able to go in straight away and say, here, do you know what the problem was there's actually a problem with the time, so it looks like in my environment there's a problem with the time server somewhere in the environment.
Video again, Paul, sorry.
Video again, no, thank you, main monitor. And I can see here computer time offset is greater than 5 minutes. So the key thing is for me is one set of servers is on HV1, like SCCM, SQL 1, all the stuff I'm working with is sitting here, and then another set of servers is on HV2. So I'd pretty quickly get an understanding that that there's a problem with the time synchronization between one of these Hyper-V hosts. But that gave me some pretty nice, some pretty useful information straight away that you very often, we're all used to something goes wrong with a server and you go to the event viewer and it says event ID 61924 has happened, a DLL structure library failure fault in the application memory has occurred here, and you're like, oh well, thanks very much. Now I know what the problem is, and you haven't a clue where to go, whereas config manager is much better at telling you what's happened and why something has happened. When we just go to a config manager server, so when I just go to SCCM2 and I just go in and I have a look at the services on it, there really only is one service that's running everything. Okay, so that's not come up yet. So just go to S. Unfortunately, they're still all called SMS, right? So if you look at this here, there are sorry, my resolution is dreadful in an effort to try and make this easier to use. So if you look at the SMS services and you just have a look at it, right? You have the SMS executive, which is running everything, and the SMS agent host. And then you have the site backup, which is set to manual. You have a component manager, and then you have the VSS writer. So site component manager is the parent service that's running all of SCCM services. And therefore, if I want to stop or start the site component manager, every service on config manager would have to start. So we already looked at the component statuses, and you can see what's going on there. So so every single one of them is held inside one service. Well, it sort of is and it sort of isn't, because up here you have config manager, service manager, and within inside this you can get into the components. And have you just lost video again? No. With inside this you can get in and you can see all of your services. You know, AD system discovery, you highlight it, you query it, you can see it stopped, you can start it, and you can query it, and you can see it's running. Now, something like the AD discovery agent might naturally only start up when it has to do something like, you know, an Active Directory discovery for users and computers. So it wouldn't surprise me if that stopped like it has there. So if you want the config manager to do something, you can start and stop a service with inside config manager, server manager, and it will do exactly what you want. So a typical thing that I often have problems with, that I wanted to go and work on, is the config manager backup. Okay, so yesterday I said so much of the console has become really easy to navigate and really easy to move around and yada yada yada, and that's true, but then some stuff just requires a little bit more extra, you know, playing around with the product. Inside sites we have inside sites we have these three components on the administration tab, and the three components are your status filter rules, your status summarizers, and your site maintenance. So the first one that we're just going to have a quick look at is site maintenance. And inside site maintenance you can see there's a whole bunch of tasks that config manager is doing to keep data clean, to keep data consistent, you know, and basically like to look after the system. Two of the things it's not doing is it's not rebuilding indexes on a schedule, which you should talk with your SQL DBA. So obviously you don't want a SQL maintenance plan and a config manager maintenance plan to rebuild indexes, you know, very close to each other. But what you definitely want is to enable a config manager site backup. So if I were to enable this task and I set the path local drive, and I just say C:// and I just, can I leave it at that? C:// and I leave it up at that. Okay, now if I say okay, and it says, you know, when do you want this to start, and it says between 2 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning, you can see by default it doesn't enable alerts for backup failures. I'm not 100% sure why that is the case, but anyway, I just hit apply and I hit OK and I hit OK. So if I didn't want to wait till 5 o'clock in the morning for that to run, you could go to your components, you could start your config manager services, and you could just go.
Sorry.
Video again?
Yeah, what time was wrong with it today?
It's grumpy today, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Okay, and so, like, you know, you can go into a service and you can go in and, you know, get something to start outside of its normal time, independent of, you know, waiting for something else to happen. Okay, here's two very important things to say about your config manager backup. The config manager backup is the only way that config manager can be restored by Microsoft. You know, it's the only supportable fashion, and it takes precedence over a SQL backup. So all it's going to do when it runs is, you know, it's just going to start a bog standard SQL backup, but it adds a couple of additional files in with the backup, and so you should always enable the task. If you don't want them on your local site server, whatever server you want it to go to, and I wouldn't be putting it on my local site server, but whatever server you want it to go to, it has to have SA access on the SQL instance that Config Manager was running on to gain access to the backup. Why, I don't know, but that's the way it is. Okay. Just to quickly go over some of the other things that were there. So we looked at site maintenance. You also have status filter rules. And a status filter rule is basically your way of controlling the alerts or what Config Manager brings up to you. So just say we go back to monitoring, and just say I pick Distribution Manager and I show my messages from a day ago. Did that pop up and I just can't see it? There you go. Okay, and you see that message there, 3203 Distribution Manager failed to process a package. Okay, so that is making my site go critical. And if you had something like Operations Manager, that could be going to Operations Manager and it could be sending emails to people. And this package might be very irrelevant to you. So you could go in and say, create a rule, ignore the package, ignore package manager, okay? And then you just match here with what has come up with the alerts. So I would just say message ID is 2302. Now you could just leave it and say ignore that message ID, but it would be probably a better practice to go into more detail on it so that we know, look, it's ignore 3203 from, this site code, from this system, from this component. Okay, but basically, if I'll have to drag that across there. If I say next on that, and then it just says here, it says, what do you want to do when this comes in? And I can just say, do not forward to summarizers. So it's basically me having a granular way to tell Config Manager, look, when something comes in, it's not important to me. Can you please, just ignore it? And then one of the last things that I would do is, if I had fixed this, and I was just waiting to see what the problem is, I would just right click and say reset errors, and it will reset the errors. And then I could go to Replication Manager and I can just say reset errors, and then it still takes a couple of minutes to refresh, but you can see like I only have Replication Manager there, and if I refresh that, so more than likely what's happening is Replication Manager has probably got another alert coming in to say, look, we have more problems kind of than what you're prepared to deal with. But you can see almost straight away my Distribution Manager so far seems to have, okay, so there's it all green now, but I wouldn't hold my breath on Replication Manager because there more than likely was, there's still, I've done nothing to Replication Manager. The only thing I've done, have you lost video?
Yeah, video going.
The only thing I've done is I've overridden the rule for my deployment manager. So what are things that you might want to overrule? Well, very recently I was working with a company that were pushing Config Manager out to retail stores. They had a pre-existing Windows 2003 server, and the C drive on all these servers only had about 2 or 3 gigs of hard drive space. Now, Config Manager is told not to accept 2 or 3 gigs. So for example, if I go to status summarizers, you can see, for example, there's a bunch of status summarizers like a site system summarizer. And in a site system summarizer, you get to put in what are the minimum amount of free disk spaces you're going to allow on things like your database and your log file. If you had a system that was reasonably stable, but you just didn't have a spare 15 gigs on that drive, you can dial that down. And you can do that for lots of other things, like on the components. On components, you get a whole lot more thresholds. So, for example, you can see here information and status messages. You actually are going to hit a warning just when you hit 2,000 messages, even though they all could be information. Okay, so it's possible for you to go in and change what the thresholds are for what Config Manager is going to bring. But you can see on things like error status messages, one warning, one will go warning, 5 will go critical for any component. So if you want to go in and say, you know, look, I need you to, you know, change how you're bringing that stuff into the system. You're too noisy on systems, or you know, you're monitoring stuff too closely. You can go in and set all that with those 3 settings. If we jump back onto monitoring, so I said I'd go straight away to site status and component status and just, you know, see what they're bringing in. Once I have a look at these and, you know, I can decide what is or isn't going to happen, my next port of call is to go to status messages. Okay, so the very easiest thing to do within status messages is just go to all messages and just say show. And, you know, you can pick your time. What it's going to do is it's going to come in and show you what's happening from all of the different components within inside your system. Now you get to do things like filter, you know, you get to, you know, do quite a lot to it, but there's a lot of information coming in there. Now, like if you just have a look at it, hierarchy manager successfully processed, config manager, which represents, you know, a site control file, the user, yeah.
Video.
I don't know why it is having such an issue today. Maybe for the next one's, Dave, we might just do a quick search on link dropping video. So within just your basic status summarizer, everything is coming back into the system. Now, why do I make such a big deal of this? I make such a big deal of this because, in general, Config Manager pretty much doesn't write to the event viewer. And the reason why is, imagine I'm deploying Office 2013 to 15,000 computers around the world. Well, it's not that useful to me if I discover that one of the components in Office 2013 fails on 15,000 event viewers on Windows 7 or Windows 8 around the world. Sure, I'd never see it. So it brings the information back to the primary site for you to be able to see it and for you to be able to, you know, go in and understand what's going on in a centralized location. So I personally I'm really I'm really a fan of it doing it this way, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You could say all messages for a specific site or for a specific system. So if you say show messages, it's going to say what machine name do you want, and I could say SQL1, and it says from what time, and then you get to put in, you know, when did you want your time, or I can specify a specific date. So if I come in, so it's just saying SQL1 hasn't reported anything within the last hour. Let's go for a new one. Machine name SC. Could it actually bring in the CAS? What happens if I go SQL1? Oh, specify time. Okay, still none. Let's just go. What I don't want to resort to is just saying load existing. Load existing, cancel, specify. Why isn't that bringing it up? We'll come back onto it. In terms of when query messages are useful, there are if you just do a search. Do you notice the way I've managed to stop saying a Google search? If you just do a search for SCCM useful queries, there are, absolutely hundreds of queries that you can just write and import to go and do stuff for you. Up top, there's a bunch of queries here. These queries, if you delete them, you're in big trouble. You never delete these queries. You can create them, you can manage from them, you should never delete them. Inside reporting, I installed reporting yesterday, and so how did I do that? Well, how do you install anything to do with Config Manager? It's just go straight to administration, go to your site systems. I went to SQL. I just right-clicked and said, new reporting instance. Do you know what? I could probably do that on the CAS for you right now. So there's my SQL CAS, and I just say, add role. What do I want to add? I'm afraid if I hit next, reporting services point, next. So I just go and I verify that's where SQL was. I just say might it have, sorry, cancel. It might have the account put in. It doesn't. Okay, set a new account. Browse survey. Okay, and all that will happen then is, I'll have to bring it onto another screen. Next. So next. So what will then happen is Config Manager will just go and install the reporting point for me, and it's as simple as that. And what it will then do is it will install reporting. I can go to my SQL instance, and on my SQL instance, all that will happen is, where did that go? All that will happen is inside SQL reporting services. So if I go, localhost reports, it will load all of the Config Manager reports. So they're sitting, so I could just as easily run them from here or go and run them from the environment. But from my own environment, so there are 450 out-of-the-box reports. They take a couple of minutes to run because Config Manager doesn't have a dedicated data warehouse. It just runs everything from the same database. Operations Manager and Service Manager would split out reporting the data warehouse from the online transaction database, but Config Manager doesn't. So it will query all the reports, they'll come back, and you can go and run the reports, and the reports are absolutely phenomenal. They're probably the single most important reason for things like asset intelligence. They just allow you to do so much, it's incredible. So one of the things that I love on the reports is things like comparing. So I can say on a report, will you please go and software companies and products. Okay, so if I just say COMP so I can say something like compare software inventory on 2 computers. Okay, I just go and I run it, and it will say, first computer name. Will it allow me to? Parameter can't be blank. Okay, so first computer name, Scam Pixie. So there's an easier way to get that one out. So assets and compliance, devices. So these are the 2 Windows 7 boxes that we built yesterday. So one is that yoke there, copy. Okay, let me just fire that into Notepad. And then my second machine, I would rather go into Win7, SCCM T1. Okay, so monitoring. Oh, is it going to go through this again? I'm just going to let it, it'll only take a second for it to come up. So here's what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to take the 2 Windows 7 machines from yesterday that we built from the same collection, and I'm just going to say, will you compare software differences from one to the other? You get things like inside the asset intelligence. So a classic challenge is large organization. You've deployed Office, and it's Office 2010. What version of Office 2010 was it? So first computer name. Second one, SCCM T1, and so this report, the reason why I sort of name it and use it all the time is because it's so amazing in standard IT environment. Okay, so they were built exactly. Let's go to SQL 1. Okay, so you can see like those 2, the previous machines were built from the same image yesterday, and there was almost nothing done to them. But here is the difference between SQL 1 and which is a SQL server, and the SCCM Try1 machine, and you can see. If you just have a look at it, it's saying, look, here's what I can find. These files are different. these are the versions, these are where they are, you know, exactly where they're located. And you can see, you know, some of these are Microsoft SQL Server copy, etc., etc. But it will go and describe the difference between every single file that it can find different on two machines, and it did it that quick. You know, it's mind-blowing. Other reports that I would use, you know, so if we just go down to software, which is a little easier. So if I just go to software companies and products, so, you know, all software companies, computers with a specific product. So if I pick that and I just say run, and then it has all these values of things that it has found, okay? So, you know, how has it found them? Well, it's just got them from your software inventory. But if I go and I pick Microsoft.NET Framework 4, and I just say view report, and HV1 has .NET 4 product version. And I can go from here into HV1, and it will then, you know, because these are linked reports, it will say, okay, HV1, current username is the administrator, the domain, the operating system, etc., etc., etc. So it's possible for you to go from, you know, they're all linked reports, and you can just keep, you know, spinning through and spinning through and spinning through. So reporting, completely awesome. If, you know, can't recommend it highly enough. I always install it. So should you. Incredible value into the environment. Inside deployments, you get a good overview of your, you know, what has been deployed, what it is. You know, it's an application, a task sequence, a baseline, and then you get a compliance level, as in if I have deployed this to a particular collection or content status or application, it's all sitting in one location. We get a client status, which we never had in 2007. So we get things like, you know, I've 6 clients. They're all currently active. They've all communicated, you know, back to the system. Life is good. And we get a client check, you know, for you to be able to go and, you know, run specific checks on clients to know which ones are active and which ones are there, and you know, if they're actually doing their thing. Config Manager comes with probably the best logging of nearly any Microsoft product out of the box. You don't have to switch anything on. It just logs by default. So where, you know, what does Config Manager log to and what's it doing? So if I just go to SCCM1 /C $, and you just have a look here. So by default, cancel SCCM. Is it SCCM2? $C. Okay. So by default, when Config Manager installs, you get your Config Manager setup log, and provided you read it within SCCM trace, it will show you anytime the word error or failed or warning comes up in the system. So, you know, all I do is I spin up and I just, you know, look for what's red, and it comes up instantaneously. So that's your very first log you'd obviously go to check for. Your next set of logs is inside Program Files Config Manager logs. And, you know, it's things like your Active Directory service, you know, your CCM, your Client Control Manager, your Cert Manager. Every single one of these is logged for you so you can see what's happening. So if I pick CCM log, it's your client control log. It shows what happens when you try to push a client. So I'll just go to the console. I'll just go to my devices. I will go to the CAS, and I'll just say, install a client. Next, always install from PSS. Next, where did that go? Next, and close. And now, if we open, where did that go to? Okay, so here is my, here's the request out to the CAS. So you can see, for example, it says up here, it says new request for CAS. It says trying the SCCM remote install account, connected to the admin share. System is server 2008. Unable to connect to WMI, doesn't matter. Creating SCCM setup, copied the client, copied all this stuff, creating the service SCCM setup on CAS, and then it deletes the request. So it writes out in text every single thing that it's doing for you straight away, and all you have to do is learn and understand what the log files are. Go to TechNet, type in SCCM log files, and it will tell you roughly what the log files are, what you should be looking for, and how do you chase them. There is something awesome with inside CCM Trace, which is there's an error lookup. So if you said 8005 and you say lookup, error not found, get rid of one of them, error not found, 8005. What's the standard access is denied? Well, if I just go 53, network path wasn't found. So loads of the system locations, the standard system errors that you find here, you can do a lookup and it will tell you where they are. There's one last set of log files, which is your management point log files. Now your management point log files are, if you go // your wherever your management point is, and you go to SMSPS, is it there or is it SMS site? Okay, so it's SMSPS, and there you have logs, and they are your management point logs, which are different to your standard primary site logs. So actually, is it there? No. So you get to see and understand 3 locations of where things are, what you can do with them, and how you can go and look for them. The SMS trace, trace 32 that I'm using all the time, we used to have to download it, $. You don't anymore. It's just cancel $. It's just sitting in program files, config manager, tools, and you get CCM trace. And I would pin that to the start menu. That would be an application that I would advertise to myself, that every time I log on, it appears on every machine, because if you're managing config manager, you can't do it without it. Just in the last sort of few minutes, to look at desired configuration monitoring, because this all basically comes into the idea of keeping an environment in the same way that you want it to be. So for example, if I wanted to check a service was set to automatic and it was started, if I wanted to check ports, if I wanted to do, run a whole bunch of simple things on a system, Microsoft has these compliance settings. And you basically have to make a compliance setting, add it to a baseline, and advertise the baseline. So if I just jump on to a SQL server real quick, and I just pull it down, Okay, config manager. So if you look up here, you can see that there are configurations. Okay, and what this is desired configuration monitoring. You can see that my machine is non-compliant, and I can view a report straight away. Okay, and what the report says to me is that the SQL Server agent is compliant, but there was ports that I wanted to check on the system, and it's non-compliant with them. So, and then very quickly, just to show, because I love to see stuff not working, if I were to pick the agent and I were to stop it, and then I just go back to config manager, and I just say evaluate, it will evaluate again. I say view report, and allow block content. Yep. Okay, that just might need a second. Let me just. Refresh. Okay, so that is actually stopped. Okay, I don't know why the SQL agent isn't coming back. It can take a few minutes just to come back, but basically, my check is for the SQL Service agent. So I'll give it a couple of minutes and I'll come back to it. So here is what I did to do that. The first thing that I did was, so let's just go and create a configuration item super quick. I'm going to say check SCR a service is set to auto. Okay, so here's the thing: is an application like Operations Manager can tell you that a service is running, but it can't tell you the startup type. So what Config Manager can do is it can go in and say, no, I can go and check the startup type for you. So I can just say, check as your service is set to auto. And then here's what you're allowed check. You're allowed go into Active Directory and check, for example, group policies, assemblies, file systems. So you can go in and just say, can you just find, okay, a file system is super easy. So you can just go in on a file system, and on a file system you just go browse, my computer, see, program files, and you just say whatever it is that you want to find inside your program files. So it could be a particular version of your antivirus. It could be, if I just say within the .NET framework, and I'm looking for that, and I say okay, and then you can put in compliance rules to say, look, it must exist, or I can say, look, I don't want to find that file, and then I just give a warning on it, and I just say apply and okay, and next, and next, and next. So you can use the GUI to go in and say, look, I'd like you to go and check for registry keys. I'd like you to go and check for files that exist. The one that I did a couple of seconds ago is SCR service SCR to auto, and then I just go so HIP Hyper-V set to AU set to auto. Now, when you first look at it, you go, oh God, I'm not sure about this. So what it is just a WQL query, and all you're doing is you're looking for a string inside, you know, your root CIM v2, okay? And then all that you need to do within it is say class win 32 underscore SER service property. I'm just going to say HIP start mode, and then I'm just going to say HIP Hyper-V. You actually would have to get it, you know, exactly as the syntax is there, and then I just say compliance rule value equals auto. Okay, and then I can say remediate compliance. So if it's not automatic, will you set it to automatic, and then report a non-compliance setting if the instance is found. I just hit OK, apply, and OK, next, 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 and finish. So I have a bunch of checks here. Here's the one that is actually correct for the service, and what I've just done is I've just gone in and I've said, would you go file system, sorry, SQL service, okay, properties. So here's what I've done on the SQL service. I've just gone in and I've said, so this is the correct syntax. I've gone start mode, name equals, do you know what it was? It was start mode that I did, and start mode equals auto. So if I go back to SQL 1 and I go back to my service and I go properties, manual, apply, and OK. So that's what it was. I was checking the mode, not actually if it was started. And there it is, non-compliant, because it's not set to automatic. So if I just go back then, just to prove it, and I go properties and I say automatic, apply, and sure I'll start it as well. And then I just evaluate, view report, and there it is, compliant again. So Config Manager can change things like registry keys and W or L settings and Active Directory group policies. And so if a machine becomes non-compliant, you can force compliance back into it. There's one last one that I have here, which is open ports on a server. And I have just loaded a script, and the script will go and enumerate ports on a server. Okay, so it goes to the IP address. It runs through the
your video's gone.
Video, thank you. It runs through the IP address, and it goes and it looks, it finds every open port on it, and then I have said you're only compliant if I can find 1433, which is my SQL port. Okay, so you can see very quickly with your compliance settings, you can build them up. They do take a bit of time, and then here is the next step is I go to a configuration baseline and I create a baseline, and just say I say HIP Hyper-V 2. And then I add, configuration items, and you add the configuration items. So you check that the Hyper-V service is running. You check it's set to automatic. You can do a bunch of checks for it. And then you can add things like software updates. So you can go in and say, critical updates. So all mine are Windows 7. But anyway, you can go in and say, look, can you check that the machine has those Windows updates? And suddenly, very quickly, Config Manager is able to go and be really thorough about, a system in your environment. The very first thing I do when I go into a company and I've installed Config Manager is I go and I check, do they have, a baseline of critical software updates? Do they have an antivirus service? Is it started? Is it set to automatic? And what was the latest DAT file? And all of that is then reportable straight away through your reporting point. And people love it. People absolutely love it. In this example here, I created a collection for SQL servers. And then in my baseline here, SQL checks is deployed to SQL servers. So sort of to close the circle, how would I advertise Hyper-V check to Hyper-V servers? Okay, and then it's as simple as this. I'd create a device collection, Hyper-V. I never want to do manual adds. What I mean by a manual add is I never want to go in and say add direct rule and type in Hyper-V1, because it's only useful at the time of setup, and what happens when we add other SQL servers or ESX servers or Hyper-V servers. So I'd always want to go in and query it, and then Hyper-V Hyper-V servers. So then how would I find it? Well, if I just edit the query statement, and on the query statement, if you just do something as simple as criteria, and you just go SE services, okay, and then the attribute that you're looking for is the display name. And then once again, Config Manager, you don't have to know what it is. Config Manager will tell you what it is. It will tell you every single service that it's after finding out there. So Hyper-V Virtual Machine Management, I think, is what I need to find. And I just say OK. And then just say I had 2 data centers. How would I have one query that says find Hyper-V servers in Dublin and in New York? Well, you would just add select SY system resource, and the system resource you'd be looking for would be IP subnet. Okay, and again you just have to go values because it'll find your IP subnets. You say okay. So now only find Hyper-V servers on the 192.168.1 subnet, and you say off you jolly well, next, and finish. Did I actually hit close on that? Close. So what should happen now, I've 2 Hyper-V servers. I don't know if you can see I have a little hourglass there, but if I refresh that, there's one. Oh, now interesting. Dave, is it still Hyper-V servers like I showed on server 2012?
Not sure, Paul. Sorry, you're ahead of me on this.
Okay, interesting. Because the only one that it's picking up there is Hyper-V1. So perhaps I would just have to check what the service is called, because my other server is server 2012. So there I go. Last thing I would do is I just go back to my baseline. I just go to Hyper-V and I just say deploy. Okay. When I hit deploy, do you want it to go to device collections, Hyper-V, okay. And then what's it going to run by? It's going to run every 7 days, remediate when supported, generate an alert when compliance is below a certain amount, and then if you have it, it will alert straight into Operations Manager. You say OK. And that's nearly my cue for Operations Manager in a few weeks' time. So so there's your baseline, you know, and you would just then go back to reporting. You would go back to configuration baselines. Oh, sorry, reporting. Oh yeah, there's those reports. You would just go to configuration, compliance and settings management, and it will have all your reports. You know, compliance history of a baseline. You know, details of compliance rules for an asset, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, if I just go to run that compliance history of a configuration baseline, run, and then normally it should be able to pick the what you need. Start date the 22nd. Okay, end date the 22nd. And I think that's all I need. Famous last words. Okay, yeah, wow, it actually ran. I know I shouldn't sound surprised. So the status of this baseline is non-compliant, and I get a warning for it. And if I keep dragging it across, there was the last evaluation time, etc., etc. You can. There are reports that allow you to drill right into the report and see the machines that actually have list of unknown, see the machines that actually have the problem inside a baseline. So if you imagine to yourself that you have, you know, a bunch of servers all over the place, you have a bunch of clients, etc. You can sit down in 3 hours and you can give somebody a report that says, of the 10, 20, 50, 100,000 clients in your environment, here's who has, you know, these software updates, that has their antivirus up to date, that has Windows Firewall switched on, that has the correct VPN client, etc., etc., etc. And all of that makes this a pretty easy sell to management, you know, for you to be able to go and do that just like that. So this is the last session on config manager of this sort of level, this, you know, level 200, giving you an understanding of it. The next bunch of sessions is operations manager. So, you know, you've built a configuration. How do we start to monitor large amounts of environments? And we plan to go through the pillars of System Center. So config manager, ops manager, service manager, orchestrator, and VMM at this level, you know, 4 sessions each. And then we're going to do much more detailed sessions. So I would ask the following: if they're useful, would you mail Dave back and say, look, you know, this is a useful way of us learning stuff, an hour a day. The reason why we're doing this is because most people find it a pain in the ass to take a day off work and go in somewhere, and sometimes what you're going in for is, you know, half sales, half techie. This is no sales, it's just techie. So if this medium is good, tell Dave. We'll try work on the YouTube clip quality. If we can, and see if we can get that a bit clearer. And if there's things you'd like to see, if there's content you'd like up here, send Dave an email and we'll run the sessions for you.
Yeah, no problem. I agree with that. Yeah, and put comments on the YouTube clips as well, because that just helps people find them, helps everyone else.
So thanks everybody. I know, like, some of you have been here for all 4 sessions, so thanks very much, Kieran and Dennis, etc., for turning up for them all. We will keep it going, and hopefully it's useful to you. So thanks everybody.